I left my full-time W-2 job and retired about 2.5 weeks ago. One of the questions that I got the most leading up to my last day of work was, what are you going to do all day? What are you going to do next? And one of the questions that I've gotten since in the last 2.5 weeks, the most common question is, what do you do all day? And so I thought I'd put together a list and kind of keep track. I've been keeping a very rough journal about listing the things that I've been doing throughout the day. So I kind of consolidated and came up with a list here of the things that I do throughout the week. I'm going to go Monday through Sunday, very high level. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail, but I think the structure might be helpful for some people because it's one of those things that whenever I would watch or listen to other retirees talk about what they were up to, they didn't go into a whole lot of detail. It was a little more vague. My Monday through Thursday routine, at least the start of the day, is the same as it was whenever I was working. So my wife still works and she needs to get up in the morning at 5 o'clock. She works 4 10-hour days, Monday through Thursday. And she likes to get up at 5 o'clock. We wake up at 5, we have our coffee, and we read. We usually just kind of have a slow start to our day for about an hour. We started that actually back in, I think, 2020 during the pandemic when we didn't have to commute every day. We started just spending a lot more time having a little bit of a slower start to our morning and not just really jumping into getting ready for the workday. And so we've continued that, and during the first couple of weeks here, I'm getting up at the same time she is. Her alarm goes off, we both get up at 5 o'clock. And then after we've had our coffee and we've read and had that slow start, we usually start our exercise program in our home gym, usually around 6 or 6:30. And we exercise for 30 to 45, sometimes an hour long. And then she goes on with her day as normal, getting ready for work and then going to work. And that's about the time that I'm having breakfast. So I usually have breakfast around 7 or 8. And then that's where the schedule really changes for me from what it was during my working career. So typically now I've found myself, it's really nice weather here in April, and I'm usually after breakfast taking a walk or going for a bike ride and just trying to get a little bit more exercise, just trying to really enjoy the nice weather and just have some fun. After that, I usually have some type of a project around our house or maybe on one of our rental properties that I get involved in. And when I was going down, heading in this direction towards leaving my full-time job, my wife and I sat down. We were very intentional about putting together a list of projects. Some might call it a honey-do list, but it was really, I'm a DIY kind of guy, and I like to stay busy and active, and we like to do projects around our house, just improving our house, and we have some rental properties where we have a list of things that we need to do for them. So we put together a very good list, trying to be very intentional about things that need to be done on these properties. And then I also enjoy doing some woodworking, so there's a variety of things that I put on that list that I want to make for other people. And we went through and kind of prioritized those lists, and so those are what I'm kind of, those are taking up my attention now throughout the week. So I will, after I've gone on my walk or bike ride, I usually start one of those projects. And then midday, just as anyone else, I'm having lunch. And then sometimes I might read, or sometimes I might just watch YouTube for a little while. And then after that lunchtime, I will get back to the project. And that'll usually take me to mid-afternoon. So I'm working like 2 or 3 hours before lunch, and then maybe 2 or 3 hours after lunch on the same project. Maybe it's a different project, maybe it's a project that carries over for a few days. But then after that, usually in the early afternoon, I've kind of had enough of that stuff, so I might turn my attention to maybe some smaller tasks, like finishing up some things that need to be done around the house, or doing some chores, maybe a little administrative work, whether that's for the rentals or making phone calls, whatever, like life type stuff that needs to be done. I've found that I've been doing that a little bit more in the afternoon. Typically, those are the things that I don't want to do, and they probably should be at the beginning of the day, because like do the worst thing first. But I like to just get out and enjoy the nice weather in the morning as long as we have it. And then so those things are kind of falling to the afternoon. And then usually around 5 o'clock or so is whenever I take a shower and get ready to make dinner. And I mentioned in the previous video about my reflections on 2020, my reflections on the first 2.5 weeks of retirement. Is one of the things that I've noticed is taking a shower later in the afternoon, not worrying about whether or not I need to take a second shower for the day or whatever. So that's happening later in the day, and then I usually make dinner for us. And sometimes we have something social to attend in the evening, like one of our nephew's baseball games or a variety of other things. And then we usually have an hour to an hour and a half late in the evening that we set aside for TV. Right now we're catching up on White Lotus. Never heard of that show until a couple weeks ago, and we've just finished season 2 yesterday. And then on that Monday through Thursday routine, we're usually in bed by 9:30. I guess it's actually Sunday night as far as bedtime goes, Sunday night through Wednesday night. Our Fridays through Sundays are a lot more relaxed, just like anybody else's weekends. So there's no alarm clocks to wake up to. We usually get up anyway between like 6 and 7, and then we kind of have the same routine that we do during the week, where we have coffee and we'll read, and then we exercise after that. So we usually finish with that around 9 o'clock or so. And then I like to go on one local hike. I'm trying to get as many of those in while the weather's nice at this time of year. And then most of the weekends we're really trying to set aside, or I'm trying to set aside, for family and friends activities. But of course there might be some projects that we're continuing throughout that maybe have been started during the week, or maybe some things that my wife specifically wants to get involved in. And these are ideally something that's very specific and intentional for around our house, or maybe around for one of our side hustles, which we can get into later. And then hopefully we're avoiding the chores on the weekend. That is one thing that I've really tried to be very intentional about, is trying to keep caught up with laundry and housework, just some of the cleaning and some of the yard work during the week, so that we don't have to worry about that on the weekend, so we can enjoy our time together and our time with family and friends. So that's pretty much what it looks like so far. It's likely to change. I'm sure whenever we get into the very hot summer, I'm going to have maybe some less time outside, so it'll be interesting to see how that evolves over time. So let me know what you think. What does your routine look like if you're in a non-W2 retirement type situation? Thanks for watching. My name is Josh, and I'll see you in the next one.